Legal Para 9. Gentlemen of the jury, you understand that it becomes the duty of the court to instruct you on the law applicable to the fact in the case, that is, the manner in which all cases are disposed of where a trial is had before a court and a jury. The object of selecting you gentlemen as jurors is to have you pass upon the facts consisting of the testimony of the witnesses who have been sworn and examined in your presence, together, of course, with any documentary proof that may have been offered, such as was offered in this case, the lease and letters and other exhibits. But in passing upon these facts, you must be guided by the instructions that you receive from the court on the law. Now, I mention that to you particularly because of what transpired during this trial. The trial is really divided into two parts. There is what we call the plaintiff side of the case and the defendant side. Now, at the close of the plaintiff's side of the case, the attorney for the defendants moved to dismiss the complaint. That motion being granted would mean that the action would then and there terminate. That motion was made predicted upon the theory advanced by the defendant's attorney that the plaintiffs had failed to establish a cause of action. Now you recall that when that mention was made prior to recess, quite a discussion was held between the court and counsel at that time, and that, I may say, was due to what the court considered was a difficult and intricate question of law which presented itself. Para, I want to say to you this, that you should not be influenced in your consideration of the fact by any conversation that took place at that time. If the court during that discussion gave an expression of opinion concerning any of the fact in this case, and you allowed that to impress itself upon you, you would doing the parties of this controversy and injustice, because you can readily see how applicable that is when you bear in mind what I said to you at the outset, that you had to pass upon the fact but take your law from the court. Para, at that time the court denied counsel's motion and refused to dismiss the complaint. That does not mean that the court is of the opinion that the plaintiffs are entitled to recover. That simplify means that the court is of the opinion that sufficient facts have been produced to warrant the submission of the case to the jury. It is not any indication that the plaintiffs are entitled to recover, and it should not be so construed by you. Para, this action was commenced by a summons, and the amount demanded in the summons was $1,000. You see, if a party commences an action in our court, he has a right to commence the action by the service of a summons, or he can commence the action by the service of a summons and complaint. First para over. Para second. In this case, the action was commenced by the service of the summons, which contained a brief statement of the plaintiff's cause of action, and then the issues is finally reached for trial by the defendants interposing an answer, and in that manner the case is brought on to trial, but previous to the action being reached for trial, the plaintiffs were obliged to file what we call a bill of particulars, that is required of the plaintiffs in order that the defendants may be advised in detail of the plaintiff's alleged claim. In the bill of particulars filed in this case, among other things, the plaintiff claimed the sum of rupees $500, that being the amount of the January rent, January rental being 1/10 of $5,000. The plaintiffs claim, in addition to that, that they are entitled to be compensated for the moving of what they call these debris or rubbish, and that they are entitled to certain sums of the money which they caused to be expended in making repairs to the premises, and to the value of a fuse box which the plaintiffs claim the defendant removed from the premises when they vacated them. Para. Now, as some one of the counsel stated to you in his summation of the fact, it is true the defendants were obliged under the terms of their lease to surrender possession of those premises on the 31st day of January. Para. That is an obligation that the defendants entered into. It is not your duty nor the duty of the court to enter into an agreement between parties. Parties who are of full age and sound mind are presumed to be capable of entering into their own obligations, and that is what the defendants did in this case. The defendants entered into an obligation to vacate those premises on the 31st day of January. Primarily, they were let into possession of the premises under a lease which commenced February 1st, 1919, in consideration of the payment of a certain sum of money per month as rent, and they were obliged to surrender the possession of the premises. It is not claimed that they did not. That element, however, has been injected into this case, and the evidence with reference to their alleged holding over or not surrendering the premises on the 31st was only permitted because of the claim that instead of material that Mr. Roberts removed consisting of rubbish as contended by the plaintiffs, on the contrary, it was valuable personal property. Now is that a fact? Para. The plaintiffs claim that it was an encumbrance, that it was debris, that it was rubbish, and that it was of absolutely no value, and instead of having any intrinsic value of some character, they said on the contrary it was something which they were obliged to remove at a very great expense. The defendants claim, on the contrary, that was left there was valuable personal property. Over. Total words 1015.